Hey, yo, it's me, Pops Van Marmalade, and you're watching the Comics-Related Madness Network. Uh-huh. So come get some. CromCon. CromCon.
Hey, we want to shout out to our sponsors, Daytona Beach Comic Con. If you are a fan of comic books, if you're a fan of comic book conventions, and if you like meeting comic book creators and getting comics and comic-related stuff, then you need to make your plans to attend Daytona Beach Comic Con. This year's show is September 9th and 10th. Silverline will be there, so you should make your plans to be there too. We'll see you there. If you like comics and find yourself in the Orlando, Florida area, doesn't everyone come to Orlando at some point in time to see the House of Mouse? But when you're here, you need to make it a point to visit Coliseum of Comics, especially the one on East Colonial Drive. They carry Silverline comics, even a limited edition Coliseum of Comics version of our comics. So, when you go, be sure to ask for Silverline Comics and tell them we sent you. OCD stands for Orlando Collector Deviants. OCD, Steve and Trish, they're a family of geeks who promote geek things, particularly those around the Orlando, Florida area. They're big supporters of Silverline, and we think you should be supporters of theirs too. Go give them some love. If you are an independent comic book maker and you need to get your independent comics made, you need to look no further than Kablam Digital Printing. They print our books, and they do a bang-up job. They're not only trusted by Silverline, but many, many independent comic book makers. Head on over to kablam.com and see for yourself just how easy it is to have your comic printed by them. And tell them Silverline sent you.
Hi, this is Tim TK, host of That Silverline Show on Tuesday. Join us at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific every Tuesday night as we discuss pop culture and the joys of making comics.
Hi, I'm Barb Kilber, co-host of Silverline's Wednesday Wham. Join us each Wednesday night as we discuss comics, literature, movies, and anything else that may catch our attention.
I'm Roland Mann, and I host Silverline's Silver Sunday. Join me every Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern as we make mine Silverline.
Hello, Internet. Welcome to That Silverline Show on Tuesday. I'm your host, Tim TK, and I'm joined, as always, by David Rios.
Hello.
Jose Fuentes is currently in quarantine, so we wish him a speedy recovery from whatever cold or flu he currently has going on. And Ron Fortier is currently dealing with some technical issues, so hopefully their speakers get figured out and they can jump back on with us, but we will keep the train going regardless, and hopefully put on a good show for you all. So we will start with some light housekeeping. I just got back from KomoriCon this last weekend, so if you came and said hi to me there, I appreciate it. It was a great time. And if you're interested in following me and seeing any of the cosplays or panels or weird things we did over there, my Blue Sky is listed below my name. Other than that, I don't believe we currently have anything up for pre-order just quite yet.
As far as Fun My Comics stuff, or
right,
or are you talking about the Diamond stuff?
As far as Fun My Comics goes, I don't think we have anything currently running.
I don't believe so.
Okay.
I know that Tiny is in the Diamond catalog.
Yes.
But Fun My Comic, I don't believe there's anything up currently. But knowing Roland, he's working hard to get that going.
So should have something to you all soon. But until that time, follow any of our stuff and ask about how you can order some back issues, because some are currently still available, and we'll try to get more to you.
Like Wolf Hunter.
Like Wolf Hunter. Yes, or Kalis. But yeah, outside of that, David, this last week, what have you been reading, watching, playing? What has been keeping you inspired?
I have not been playing anything. Reading wise, not too much. A little bit of the Krakoa stuff. Um, there was a book that I found. It's an older book. I haven't read it yet, but let me see if I can find it real quick here. See my that stuff. Oh, it just got moved over. 15 books around. It was one. It's more of a really cool cover. Ah, here it is. This was from a book, an older book called Nadia and the Nomobots. But I
Ooh,
love this cover.
that's fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, it's perfectly right and light. Oh, there we go. There's
There
a
you
little
go.
there.
Yeah. So this is Nadia and the Namobots.
Yeah, it's a one issue series. And I don't know. I was kind of captivated by this cover going. I love the colors. I love the artwork. I love everything on it. So, yeah, it was just something that popped out that was interesting. Some other stuff. Didn't have time to read that. I would like to at some point get a hold of some time to do it. Some of the absolute, because I want to see absolute Batman, absolute Wonder Woman, Superman. See how that's going. I know that issue 2 of Batman is out this week. So yeah, but again, not really that much that I've been able to read on that. So as far as watching, last week I said I had pretty much finished the Agatha Harkness stuff. This week I started the Penguin.
Nice.
And I have to say, I'm really impressed.
Yeah, it's the show that made Colin Farrell hate makeup.
It's like, yeah. But it's phenomenal. I mean, just
I've
to
heard really
see
good
him,
things.
to see him on that, and the actress who's playing Sophia Falcone, she's doing phenomenal job.
I see Ron is currently in the green room. Ron, nod or put up a hand or something if you can hear us. Okay. Can you hear us at all, Ron? I think he's still figuring it out. Okay. Ron, nod if you can hear us. Okay. We'll wait for him to figure that out, and hopefully he can. I think it's an issue with the settings. I sent him a message. I don't know if he saw it. There's only so much you can do. But
Well, it's gonna be an interesting week because for this particular topic, I'm pretty much exclusively working for people for projects. I don't have a lot of the experience with the whole selling selling and everything. So we're gonna rely on you a lot.
Yeah, well, part of it's also going to be on the putting a team together, and we'll be soon to have your perspective on how you want to be approached, essentially, because you're someone who has experience working in comics, and when you're looking to approach a colorist, what are some of the best practices? Or really any team member, as well as even as if you're not the primary creative, if you're not the rights holder creator, what you can do as well to promote the comic in addition to everything else. Yeah. I may or may not have just pulled out Namobots on my Amazon because that art style immediately pulled me in.
It's phenomenal. I was really impressed with it. I really liked it. So.
Yeah. It's currently $3.99 to get a digital copy. So, that goes straight to the creator. Cool.
Awesome.
Ron, can you hear us now? I don't think he can hear us. Okay. I figured that out. We're currently 2 Rons in the green room, so we'll see how this goes. Myself, I have been. I started reading Gideon the Ninth, which is a book series by what's her name? It's a newer creator. Tamsin Muir. It's part of the Locked Tomb trilogy.
Okay.
And imagine, if you will, necromancers in space. Things feel very 40K or Dune-ish, but written in a way that's almost easier to digest. And I've been liking it quite a bit. My partner cosplayed as Gideon at KomoriCon, so there's a little bit of bias there, but we had a really good time. And the writing is very, for as dense as the material covers, it covers stuff similar to Dune. It flows very well. It's very natural and organic writing, so it's not abrasive. Like, you don't run into a whole lot of those fake words that are just kind of there to make the ride bumpy. So I recommend it. Watching wise, started getting deeper into the Demon Slayer anime. Maybe for some future cosplay plans as well. At SoccerCon in April of next year, I'm going to be cosplaying Guillaume in 2 different fashions. One day is going to be straightforward Guillaume from the anime. Another day is going to be Guillaume in a maid outfit.
Okay.
Yeah. So, if you're in the Pacific Northwest and go to SoccerCon and happen to see me, feel free to say hi.
Sounds good.
Well, that's been about my week. Besides staffing KomoriCon, I was the assistant press manager, so I was helping with interviews and press outlets and all that. So that was a very busy weekend, but a lot of fun.
Very cool.
Yeah. Okay. Looks like Ron is having issues with his audio. He's back in the green room. Ron, can you nod if you can hear us? Can you hear us now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Perfect.
Yay!
Well, man, I tell you, this technology is supposed to make life easier. Ha! I go through this practically every time I get on any kind of a video connection. My speakers are, I think it's called Beats Pill or something like that. And it's temperamental as all hell. It works when it wants, and when it doesn't want, it doesn't at all. But somehow or other, I stuck with it, and I am here.
Perfect. Okay.
Welcome.
Sorry about that.
Well, I just got done talking about spending my weekend back at KomoriCon. So I believe you also spent the weekend at a con, Ron's, if you want to talk a little bit about that.
Sure. I was at the Rocky Mountain Con in Denver this past weekend. I think it's probably the 7th or 8th year of the show, and it's what you'd call a mid-sized con, but really focused on comics more than anything else, and features a lot of the local comic creators from this area, New Mexico, Colorado, Wyoming, and whatever, and they get some decent guests from elsewhere. I was one of several. Along with me was Mike Barron and Zach Howard.
Nice.
So yeah, it's a good show. Like I said, the guy who puts it on is a fellow named Tim Moret. The proceeds always go to some charity every year, which is why it's a whole lot of fun to do that.
Yeah.
And this particular year, the proceeds went to some kind of pediatric organization that deals with cancer in children.
Nice.
Yeah. So, hey, really, really had a good time at the show. My wife likes to come with me in this one, and we tend to call it our home con because it's just down in Denver. But I got to tell you guys, little surprise, Friday afternoon as we were packing up to head down, it started snowing up here in Colorado. And the drive down was just a little wee hairy, let me tell you. But we made it all right in one piece. And like I said, we had a really great time.
That's awesome.
Good. Yeah. There you go. Well, we'll do our last bit of housekeeping, just a little bit of promoting what we currently have coming up. I know for myself, I am currently working on some stuff for Dracula #2. Doing some writing and edits on that. And we'll just pass around back in circle. David, what are you currently working on project-wise? They're hoping to get out to the people soon.
Just trying to finish up the last few pages of Demon's Tale.
Nice. Okay. And Ron, what do you have coming up in the future?
We started getting into that. I'll tell you, as far as Silverline is concerned, of the 12 projects I'm currently involved with,
Nice.
Beyond the Stars, I'm done writing it. I've written all 6 scripts. Issue #4 is just wrapping up as far as production is concerned. I just found out from Roland earlier tonight. The book's been lettered, so it's ready to go. The last element that's going to be the covers, getting the covers finished. Aside from the creator himself, Andre Bermuda's primary color, Rob Davis is doing an alternate cover. And so is our friend Jose Fuentes, who showed us some of his pencils the last episode we did here. So it looks like that's probably going to get to Kickstarter around the 20th of this month.
Nice.
Fingers crossed. And like I said, we're 4 issues into it. Knock on wood. Maybe we'll see 5 and 6 sometimes next year. And the other project that I've got going with Roland Silverline is a 3-issue miniseries called Chivalry Incorporated. Again, I've finished all 3 scripts for that. That's being illustrated by Javier Lugo, and it's being inked by Jesse Hansen, and Mickey Clausen just signed on to color it. So, like I said, trust me, I'm a busy camper, which blows my mind more than anybody else, my friends. I mean, at the height of my career when I first started out in this business, I think the most I ever worked on at a single time was 3 projects. But I sincerely, no bull, I've got 12 comic projects in the works with various publishers.
Nice. Very cool. That's always exciting when you feel like you hit a stride of just cranking out content and being prolific.
Yeah, again, it's like, okay, this is supposed to be in my retirement years, right? But these ideas keep popping up in my head, and as both of you guys are writers, so when an artist of talent comes knocking on your door, trust me, no comic writer worth the salt is going to turn them away. And half of these projects are people who, over the last 2 or 3 years, came to me and said, "Hey, I'm working on a project. I've got a plot, but I need a writer. Would you like to help out?" And again, here we are.
Nice. Okay. Very cool.
Tim, I got to ask, so the Dracula project, is that the one with Rob Davis?
It is.
Oh, all right. I am personally psyched about that.
Yeah, I know. I am. I kind of talked about this in our Halloween episodes because it's thematic, but being I've always there's something that I've been wanting Roland to do is to do some aged up content, or to even get us a red label imprint. But we're able to go full bore on being true to material Dracula, And what I really liked about the book is that there's a certain level of body horror to it that wasn't really done in the Universal movies. So it's not really spoilers when it happens in the first issue, but it's kind of setting up the rest of the series. As what happens in the book, there is an individual who, when they get killed by Van Helsing and Harker and the rest of the crew, they're put back in their coffin, they're beheaded, and their faces stuffed full of garlic. And Bram Stoker paints a really good word image of how this character is dressed in their coffin, holding their head with a mouthful of garlic. But that's never been put to screen, and I always thought that's such a wonderful bit of body horror as well as monster horror to put into a vampire storyline. It should be illustrated. So
Right.
yeah.
Look, hey, Rob and I, are partners in a publishing venture called Airship 27.
Yes.
So we usually hook up a couple times a week. And he clued me in on this project way back when, before, the word got out on it. And I mean, he's really wicked excited about the project itself. I mean, come on, it's a classic, all right? And to do it, as you guys are doing, from the book itself, and exactly what you just said, all right, giving us those visuals that nobody in films have done yet, all right. And hey, man, I tell you, you come in on this at such a fateful moment, because Rob's work right now, I think, is some of the best stuff he's ever done. It's just page after page. It's brilliant work.
Yeah, there's a moment in there where I haven't shown it off yet, but when maybe once it gets colored, when we use it as promotional piece. But there's we're doing it as a pretty decent sized panel. There's a moment where Dracula, or at this point, is describing his history as Vlad Tepes in a way where Harker finally realizes where he's coming from, and describes the world, the whirlwind of a monster that he was in the battlefield, how he had fought off 3 armies at once. And so I wanted to say okay, this is a really cool flashback piece. We could do some fun color work here. We could do something to show that the man that Harker is now trapped with is a monster among men, with the black dragon armor and all that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and the picture of him standing atop a mountain of heads and skulls that Rob did is just wonderful.
All right. So, how many issues are you looking at making this?
I believe we're looking at doing 4. So we're kind of doing it in. We're almost kind of doing it each portion of the journey is its own issue. So we have the arc in Transylvania, the arc in London, the journey across the world, and then going back to Transylvania. So we're kind of doing there's a bit of back and forth on there, but it's I'm loving how it's coming together.
That's awesome. Like I said, I'm really looking forward to this thing big time. It's always fun. Every now and then you get naysayers or whatever. It's oh, why are you doing that again? Why are you doing that one again? But the bottom line with this is that it's a classic. That's why it's a classic, okay? Because it's a great story. And we creators love getting our hands on great stories and adding our own little twist, our own little interpretation, and seeing what we can bring to it. So, hey, bravo for coming up with the idea. And again, I think this thing's going to be huge when it comes out.
Yeah. I was the one who was approached for it. I think Roland was passing some ideas back and forth, got a hold of Rob, and then reached out to me because on the show here, I run a annual game of Vampire the Masquerade, which is a role-playing game like D&D, but with vampires every Halloween. And he's well, you're the vampire guy, so.
There you go. All right. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, Rob and I did a vampire graphic novel because, you're talking about the old Universal horror monsters. And I love those. I love all the classics, from Dracula, Frankenstein, the Invisible Man, the Werewolf.
Yeah.
But I got to tell you, I have such a fondness for Daughter Dracula.
Mm-hmm.
All right, the sequel to Dracula itself. And years ago, I mean, we're going back now, maybe 10 years ago, I wrote my own version of that, and basically, got Rob on board to illustrate it for me. And we did this, Daughter Dracula graphic novel that we self-published. And,
Nice.
hey, I sell out of it at every con I go to. Few people that have looked at it and made some really great comments, some generous comments about the fact that it's too bad Hammer Film it wasn't around, because it would have been the perfect, fodder for a film. The conceit is basically Dracula's daughter eventually meets Manfred von Richthofen during
Nice.
World War One, the Red Baron, and they
Yeah.
had this torrid love affair. All right, so, but yeah, Rob knows how to do horror, and he knows how to do vampires.
Yeah, I'm loving it, and I'm stoked to see how it turns out. I'm also stoked to get in people's hands. I want, I already want to see people's reactions when they page through it. So hopefully soon. Okay. Well, that has
I
been.
know. I know that. Sorry to interject here.
Very good.
I know that I worked with on one of Rob's covers for the Achilles Landed 2,
Yeah.
which actually turned out to be the foil cover. It was a lot of fun. I really liked the way it turned out. So, it was a good experience for me. Clean lines, very easy to work with Rob. So it was definitely a high point. So
Yeah.
We're talking. I mean, Rob is probably like myself, been in the business 45 to 50 years now, and one of the things that I've experienced over those years, working with multiple artists, right, time and time again, those with that really special gift, all right, they just keep getting better and better. And it's like, you scratch your head because you go, oh, okay, this is a masterpiece. What can he do? What can she do that's better than this? And then they're on another project, and you see it. You see the art develop. You see it continue, all right, to get better and better. To me, which is a sign of a really great creator. And that's what I'm saying now. Rob was good 40 years ago. Rob was good 30 years ago. Rob was good 20 years ago. Right now, again, he's doing some of the best work he's ever done. It's like all that experience, all those other comic projects, all right, just filter in and just become a part of who he is.
awesome.
Excellent. Okay. Let's get into tonight's topic. Where'd my notes go? There we go. Absolutely. So that was a little bit of housekeeping there. Tonight we're going to be talking about the process of. It's going to be a little bit of an educational one for people who are just looking to get started in comics. The process of building and selling your first comic. So the reason we call it building is because we probably got into the business because we have some sort of creative passion, whether it's writing, illustrating, inking, and coloring. We're not going to touch on those because those are their own separate specialty subjects, but this is the process of building a team, interacting with the team, kind of more of the almost like business side of things of that, which when you're getting into comics, it's kind of weird to think about. But unless you would look out and have an uncle who works at a big publisher, you're probably going to be on it on your own when you're first starting out and probably for a while. And so these are important skills to have. We all here have had, different levels of experience with different levels of publishers within the space. Whether that be working with Marvel and Malibu or DC, or just having only existed with either doing self-publish and small print house style business. So we'll get into kind of the first little bit here of where everything kind of starts. Whether you're an artist looking to work on a comic or a writer who has an idea and you're looking to bring it into reality, you need to figure out who you're going to be collaborating with, who your team is going to be, what kind of projects you're either going to hand out or sign on to. And the roles they're in. I have kind of interesting experience with this, so I'll save myself for last because I've managed to sidestep some things, some parts of kind of grinding my teeth. I sidestepped those, but then went face first into other parts of the business. David or Ron, whoever wants to go first, when you're looking to either put together a team or collaborators for a book, what are you looking for? What does that process look like for you? Or when you're looking to sign on to a book, what do you want to be? What kind of things do you want to see be presented to you, and how do you make that decision of I want to take this project over this project?
Well, if I can, I mean, let me talk about what used to be and what we have today. I think it's like night and day now.
Absolutely,
really. Yeah. I mean, when I started in the business, basically, whether you were an artist or a writer, the only publishers were in New York in the first place, right? And basically, what you had to do is if you were a writer, you had to write scripts and mail them off to Marvel or DC and whatever small other companies might have existed. And there were a few, all right, in the big publishing houses. And that was it. I mean, that was that wall you had to crack. And it wasn't an easy thing to do, to start off with. And if you're a writer, it was the same idea. I mean, writers most of the time had to hoof it to get to New York and to hopefully get an appointment with an editor and bring their portfolios and show them. And that was really the only way you could get into making comics if that was the career that you wanted to take. I mean, in the last 50 years, technology has turned that around. I mean, literally to the point where desktop publishing, the internet, networking, social media, everything else. And all of a sudden, I mean, if you're a young creator, whether you're a writer or an artist, and you're even the smallest bit tech savvy and on social media, then literally you have the power in your hand that at one time was held only by editors at Marvel or DC, and that was it. You want to put a team together? Get on social media and basically say, hi, I'm so-and-so, and I have an idea for a strip or a comic book or a mini-series, and explain it and see what you get. Go fishing. See if you get other creators to come on board. There's a gentleman named Ed Duckshire who lives out of Massachusetts, and Ed's a professional comic book letterer. He's been at this for many, many years. And a little over 15 years ago, started a website called digitalwebbing.com. Yes. All right. And it's what we're talking about here. Digital webbing is literally a place where comic creators, whether you're an artist, a penciler, an inker, a letterer, a writer, whatever, can go and post ads saying what you're looking for, what either you're looking to do or what elements you're looking to build a team. And it has, even to the point where it also has two different sides to that website. One side is collaborative, where, hey, I want to get together a team because this is my idea of a comic book series. And if, I get artists and letterers and colorists who join me on this, then we'll do a project and we'll pitch it to various comic book companies, or even go our own route, Kickstarter, and do it ourselves. All right. The other half of this website is if you're one of those people who's lucky enough to have a few bucks, you literally put out and say, hey, I'm a writer, I'm looking for an artist, and I will pay so much a page. Digital webbing has brought together so many creators over the last 15, 20 years, and projects have sprung from that. It's amazing. But like I said, to me, it's like amazing what's available to the young creator. And sometimes when I'm at conventions and people come up to me and want to tell me their idea or show me their artwork, right? And how do I do this? How do I show this to Marvel or DC or Image or IDW? And I sit back and say, well, why do you even want to show it to them? Why don't you publish it yourself? Because you can do that.
Yeah.
My 2 cents.
Yeah. I mean, that's absolutely, I've talked about this before on the thing, is that now, every Instagram post is someone's portfolio, right? So you can find whoever you want to work with, whatever start looking for. They probably exist somewhere on the internet, and you can send them a direct message. You can find them on Instagram or Tumblr. But there's also places like Digital Webbing. There's also the subreddit, if you're on Reddit, called Comic Book Collabs, where people can tag their posts saying like whether an artist looking for work or a writer pitching an idea. If it's a collaboration, then you will split proceeds whenever you go through publishing, or if it is a paid project, if you're going to pay a page rate and what your budget is. And those are going to be very important discussions to have, because as I've said before, I'll say 1,000 times until I die, pay our artists. We all are in here because we love it, but also people need to be able to eat.
That helps. That helps a lot. Yes, it does.
But you can. It is as easy as making a post on any one of those sites, or potentially go. Don't just limit yourself to one site. Go on both sites and try and sort yourself a large pool of candidates of people that you want to work with. And also gives you a great network of people that you can begin communicating with, even outside of even if you're not immediately collaborating with them, just people to talk with in the space online. And that's going to be building your future network for sharing jobs in the future or helping each other market stuff. Back in the day, you had the traditional, if you want to go traditionally published, you had to go through the submission process of sending stuff off to Marvel and DC, who no longer even accept submissions. And that whole thing of mailing in back and forth, getting notes. Image is a little bit better, but even then, Image wants you to send in a full book, so you already need to have an artist working with you.
Yep.
If you were fully independent like I was and were in the zine space, you took you printed off your dad's printer, your 14-page or whatever it was, text pamphlet with empty space. You went down to your skate park and tried to find some stoner kid who also had a pencil. And like, hey, do you draw? Do you?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
I have a friend who lives up in Maine, and this story I absolutely love. All right, because it's part of what we're talking about here tonight, and about having this dream of working in comics. And so this guy grew up loving comic books, attended all the local cons in New England, right? Got to know a lot of the creators and whatnot, and made friends with a lot of people. So going back to what I'm talking about is this new revolution in technology, right? So he decides one day, right? He's working, got a wife, a family, and he decides he wants to write a comic book and publish it himself. All right. So basically, he gets online, he gets onto one of these, team websites or whatever, right? And he finds an artist from the Philippines who charges X number of dollars per page rate. All right. So he contacts him, they go back and forth, and he agrees to pay him the page rate, all right, when he has the money, and the guy will do a page when he's paid for that page. All right. And again, as we all know, okay, I mean, a contract's only as good as your word and what people agree on. So this friend, Larry, writes himself a script. I think the thing was like about 50 pages long. And he works, and when he has enough money to pay for a page, he wires it to the guy in the Philippines, and the guy does the page for him and sends it back to him digitally. All right. I think this took him like about 4 years. And 4 years later, he had 50 pages, penciled, inked, and lettered. Beautiful work. He self-published it and was at conventions selling his comic book. Now, he didn't care whether he had a job or whether he would ever make another comic book. Incidentally, though, he did use that method, all right, because he loved comics. And that's what he did. He made his dream come true. Again, I don't ever want to see a creator come at me at a con and say, "Oh, geez, it's impossible. I can't make a comic or I can't work in comics." And baloney. Not today. Not today.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody can do this. You got to have the willingness to do it. You have to have a plan for doing it, and you have to know what you want to do.
Yeah, and it's the same thing of like, as it depend, there's certainly quality of work goes into it. You're probably going to find better quality work for people who want to be paid a page rate for each page. But if money is an issue, then even then you're going to find people who are fresh out of art school or who haven't built a proposal yet, who want to collaborate with them and say like, okay, great, we're going to work on this together. And when you go to Kickstarter, you take 80%, I'll take 20, and because your artist is going to spend a lot more time on this than you are as the writer. But
sure.
Yeah, and you and having worked on several contracts, 20% for a writer is usually generous. But you work out your whatever your split is going to be. Assign rights however you see fit, and just say like, okay, great, I have this ready. Work on it when you're not at your day job, and then we'll hold each other accountable. We'll get a third friend on to work as the project editor to keep us both online. And then once it's done, we compile it into a PDF and put it online.
Why not?
Yeah.
Okay. It's like, a few years back, I'm not doing it much anymore now because, again, like I spoke earlier, I'm so caught up on some actual projects that are in the works and hopefully going to be published when they're all wrapped up and done. But quite a few years ago, I'm sitting around my office one day, right? And I have this idea for like a 6-page little horror story, something you'd find in EC Comics or something, right? Okay, so I write it. I just write it off the top of my head. And then, because I know Ed and I know digital webbing's out there, I go to digital webbing and I post this ad on the basically no money collaborative thing, right? And basically say, hi, I'm a professional comic writer, Ron 40, this is who I am. I've just written a 6-page little horror script. Is anybody out there willing to take a shot at drawing this? I can't pay you any money, but I tell you what, if I like your art and you draw the script, I can pretty much guarantee you I will get it published and you will be published.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it was, shot in the dark. Can this kind of stuff work? Are there young creators out there that, are looking to break in to do something? You guys wouldn't believe how many submissions I got within 24 hours of putting that ad up, right?
Yeah.
So it was a case of, I've got 7 or 8 different artists of various skills. And so I looked through these sample art pieces, right, and find the one that I thought absolutely worked with the story I'd written. But at the same time, there were 2 or 3 other artists who really had some artistic chops. Well, got back to the guy I liked the best for the story, and he drew it. And I put it aside. I got back to 2 of those other guys and said, hey, I've given this script to somebody else, but I could come up with something for you if you'd like to work with me. So over a period of 2 years, I ended up, I think, making almost 25 of these short pieces.
Nice.
And ultimately, sat down with Rob Davis at Redbud Studios, and we published Ron Fortier's Tales of the Macabre. And every one of these short stories got published. And I'm happy to say all these artists were totally thrilled with the idea. I delivered on my promises, and a lot of them saw that there was a lot of anthologies out there, independent comics looking for material like this, and went on to write more stories, draw more stories, get things published, and whatever. So there are myriad ways to break into the industry if you're willing to do that.
Yeah. And especially like you mentioned, like with that case in particular, doing shorter anthology pieces, even there are always anthologies coming out everywhere, kind of in every corner of the industry. And those places will even usually sometimes have space for writer submissions too, which is interesting. But you can also find postings for those online. But even then, if you just want to do like your own little short piece or whatever, if you want to start out strictly as doing a web comic before going to print to sell a hard book material, I'm going to use Laura Olympus as an example here. It's a comic about it's the story of Hades and Persephone in kind of like a 1920s Great Gatsby style setting. Started out as being a few panels at a time, just posted online until they completed an entire book and had a fan base already grew. They compiled it, put it out as a hardback, and it immediately became a bestseller. It's one of those things where if you just want to do, if you have limited time or limited space or budget, and it's just you and a few people working out when you can, putting out enough to if you just do one like half panel at a time, or like it's not really telling a full story, you're probably not going to get traction, but enough to essentially tell a story in a post, right? Or if it's 5 panels or a snippet or like a half page, or however it comes out to be, you need to format this, or do a bunch of 6-page shorts, and then over the course of several years release them online through whatever digital comic service you like. There's a bunch of them out there now, and a lot of them will be kind of at your leisure with the releases. You don't need to deal with the old time frame of, all right, we need your script by the 5th of each month. You don't need to deal with that anymore. Yeah.
Right.
But you can do that, and that's a totally valid way to get your career going, or even get your dream project done and completed in a way that is sustainable and will allow you to then, compile it into a hardback through whatever print-on-demand service you like, or whatever publishing house, and shoot it off to however you want to do it. No, you don't even need to have a publisher or a press agent to get into Barnes and Noble anymore. As long as you have a hardback and know how to reach out to the distribution department.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, it's just, it bowls me over, and I love seeing it only because, I mean, I think right now we're in an age where independent comics, to me, are the real heartbeat of the comic culture in this country today. Just such amazing work. I mean, yeah, granted, a lot of it's amateurish, right? A lot of it isn't quite there yet. But if you go to, any local con, any small state con or whatever, right, and you walk around, my advice to most comic fans is, okay, yeah, there's a big shot guest there, but we all know what their work looks like. Walk around, the artist alley, and look who's doing their own comics, all right? Because that's where you're going to find some really unique treasures, some talent, some really up-and-coming talent. And the flip side of this is support them, all right?
Yeah.
The guys starting out, encourage them, buy their comics, help them out, and, you never know where any of this is going to go.
Yeah. So I think this is kind of a good flipping point into the next part of this topic, which is the actual selling it part, which is usually where sometimes creatives get a little freaked out because either they're hermits or they're digital nomads or what have you, and they don't deal much with either marketing themselves or don't want to deal with the elevator pitches. But in order to get your comic in people's hands and actually have people read it, you will at some point need to sell it. And yes, even giving it away counts as a form of selling it, because you need to convince them to take it out of your hands.
Well, I mean, if you're going to give it away, here's the kicker. There's a point where I can see myself at a convention with a new comic on my table, and people come over and they're looking at my work and buying it and this and that, right? And I don't think it's crazy to every now and then grab a copy. And if you're talking to, a fan who, or somebody who likes your work in the past and has bought it before and supports you, is to basically say, here, on me, but do me a favor, okay? After you've read it, get on social media and review it.
Absolutely, yeah.
Free marketing. There you go, okay? Do that a couple of times, and all of a sudden your book starts getting bantered around by people, and other people are saying, okay, what's this book, okay? whatever. So yeah, if you can get reviews, all right, at the right places on the right sites, yeah, that's a huge marketing tool.
Yeah.
And then, did you ever notice the people who come at this thing? There are all kinds of personalities. All right, there are introverted people who, oh, I've made a comic book, but they sit at a con and they don't say 2 words, and you walk by their table and they won't engage you. All right, which drives me up a tree. People just keep coming by and they're so introverted, but they've got such a great book in front of them. The flip side is you go to shows and you see young creators that nobody knows, have no clue what their comic book is, but at their table is the comic book, and then T-shirts and posters and everything else. And these guys are like shaking your hand as you walk by and everything. All right. It's just like right out there. Okay. That much faith, that much confidence in their work. And that in itself also becomes contagious. To me, the classic example of that, because I was there when it happened, Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird, when they debuted the first ever issue of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle, all right, it was at a Howard Johnson, Portsmouth, New Hampshire, on a Sunday afternoon, and they had a table at the back of the hall, and the table was filled not only with the copies of issue #1, which nobody in his uncle had ever heard of before, but they had all kinds of T-shirts and posters and buttons and everything else. And it was like, this is what we've done, and we're banking everything on it.
Mm-hmm.
Boom.
Yeah. Well, it's always like the whole issue, right? Is that, like you said, like it's a big boom age for independent comics. So because of that, there is going to be a lot of noise, right? Both online and the con space of other people existing in the same space as you. So you have to find what is going to be the way that you rise above that. And there's a bunch of different ways. And a lot of it comes down to, at its core, being more outgoing than maybe you're capable with, or at least being more entertaining or adding value. I know Steam Patriots, what they did, which is they printed off service badges that like you would have like slapped to the side of your arm or whatever. They print off service badges that you give out to people. I'm kind of lucky in that my partner is a professional cosplayer, and I also cosplay myself. So when people walk by our booth and you see like a movie grade costume or whatever for a property you may not be familiar with, that definitely helps. When I was selling for Bad Cave, there's, when you're just, even if you're like, have nothing else going on, you're just sitting behind the booth and maybe just having your flyers, whatever, you have the trick of projecting your voice, right? When you're giving someone your elevator pitch, being like, oh, this is The Last Samurai meets like Shinobi Wars or whatever. That's the part that you project to the other end of the room, so then it carries across. The person may wonder why you talk a bit loudly, but now you just kind of broadcast your sound or whatever. So if anyone else is nearby and that picks their ear, right? It's little tricks of just being loud, and either being louder visually or auditorily than you might think you need to be. But it is that whatever you can do to get above the noise, literally.
Yeah. I mean, solid enthusiasm. I mean, if your own project doesn't excite you, it's not going to excite anybody else. Yeah. All right. I mean, the idea is I have a degree in business administration. All right. Took a class in marketing by some guy who'd been a salesman for 30 some odd years. And the point he made to all of us was that if you have faith in your product, then it's like you really believe you're doing your customer a service. So if you're a comic creator and you've written a comic book, what you put your heart and soul into and you think is a great comic book, then you're wanting to sell it to somebody else is basically and honestly saying, I want to entertain you.
Yeah.
Hey, this is a book. This book is going to make you feel good. You're going to read this and it's going to entertain you. All right.
Yeah.
And so you use that comes across. It's not so much the car salesman pitch of, oh, you got to buy my book, blah, 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 blah. But, comic fans are pretty savvy and they can see through the bull and the BS. But if they meet a creator who's sincerely and honestly, passionate about what they've created and want to share it with you, that comes across.
Yeah. A bunch of stuff like that. and you also mentioned, speaking of con fans being savvy, the idea of, you hand out the one for free book every now and then, ask for someone to give a review on social media. Having worked in marketing for the last several years, the kind of the golden rule is that the most effective marketing is going to be word of mouth. What people say about you is going to dictate whether you do good or well, or good or bad. So getting on just the average person's Instagram feed and saying like, hey, I met this creator, they're great, or I had a good time with them, or hey, I got this book and I enjoyed it. Little things like that where a lot of creators now, I feel like, aren't necessarily, are almost afraid of social media, either in that they don't use it or they don't know how to work it. But in reality, it's an elevation of that same space where you're just creating a word of mouth circle, but in a different format, in a way that, actually a lot of people take pictures of your cover, which adds even more value to it. Where if you're just having general interactions with people like con spaces or like cosplaying or whatever, and the natural thing after a cosplay meetup, or if you're taking photos at a con, is like, hey, what's the Instagram tag? And you tag someone in there, naturally they want to share it because they talked with a creator or they got a photo of the creator, and that's cool. So now that gets shared with them. Their friends see that passes down the line. And there are a bunch of different ways that, and the important thing like that, like you said, Ron, is that fans are savvy. They're going to see if you're manipulating them, if you're trying just to buy their likes. But if you are genuinely there to have fun with people who enjoy the same thing you do, it's just that you're on the creator side of things. Yeah, that shouldn't stop you from enjoying the space and having fun with people.
Right. I mean, look, even things like what we're doing right now. All right. I mean, literally, and I know a lot of creators who are really good at this kind of thing of self-marketing. All right. I.e., you've got a new comic book, you get it out there, you want to use social media, you want to get images out, you want to go to conventions, whatever. But we live in this amazing age where there's who knows how many podcasts out there, thousands of them. All right. And most of the time, most podcast hosts are looking for guests. They want guests, okay, to fill their hours or whatever. So put yourself out there. Get on social media, say, here's my comic book, this is what I'm about, and hey, I'll gladly do an interview. Give me a call,
Yeah.
And again, you can never stop selling what you're doing, all right? In whichever way you go this, and you can't ever fool yourself in thinking that's the maximum you've ever done. A point in fact, all right, publishing a small publishing house like I do with Rob Davis, we publish anthologies and novels of pulp characters. Okay, so new book comes out, we get it across every spectrum of social media we can. We post a link, we get interviews up with the authors and the writers and whatever. Now, time goes by, a month goes by or whatever, and I'll get some writers going, well, sales are dropping off. To which I come back and say, well, when's the last time you posted the cover on Facebook or LinkedIn or something else? Well, we already did that when the book came out. Yeah, right. But only X number of people that day, that week saw it. So 2 weeks from now, post the same cover. Watch what happens. All right. You always keep the product in front of your customer base, always. And so it's one of the things that we do at Airship 27. Every week, I'll look through some of the books that we published a year ago and just republish those covers and remind folks online, oh, by the way, we had this book on Kygor, the Jungle Lord, all right, or we had this Black Bat mystery book. I post a cover, mention the writers or whatever. Every time you do it, there's another spike in sales. There's another spike in sales. So you can't have that fallacy of thinking that you can stop marketing and everybody's seen your marketing. That's all there is to it. Not the case ever.
Mm-hmm. And there's also ways about that. One of the methods used in traditional marketing, which applies very well to any sort of visual media like this, whether it be comics or even what I do for miniature painting, which is the image backlog. Whenever you get a chance, if you get a bunch of test panels in, or whenever you get like your shoots of the cover in, or if you get a bunch of like splashes in, okay, we're gonna make sure that we have a file that is 5 to 15 whatever photos full of things like that, and then once a week or whatever, we're going to pull something from this file and post it, and we're going to do that for the next 15 weeks. And so, yeah, you get your project, you get your work done all in one go, which is really nice. And then you just make sure to continue to re-up it so it's always present, and it's always there, and that you continue that momentum.
Yep.
And
Totally.
and daily in that time, you've then created your next backlog. So you should never be at a point where like, oh, we don't have anything for today. It should be a point of, all right, we've already finished these 15, so now we're on to this next one. And then you never fully retire that last set. You're like, okay, we're gonna wait for this sometime 6 months, wait for the creative to refresh, or to wait for interest to move around, and then you pull it back out and be like, hey, did you remember this thing from last year?
I mean,
yeah.
Ultimately, if you get into the business, and if you make a career of it, or you get a start, and people start knowing your work, all right. Again, one of the rules of being a success to that degree is a year will go by, and that con that you had last year was a great show, and you sold, and you met a lot of great fans. Okay, great. But don't go back to that show if you don't have something new, right? I mean, literally, if your fans are buying your work and enjoying it, then most likely they're going to come back next year. They're going to see you're on the guest list, and they're going to come back. And the first thing they're going to do when they come to your table is say, what's new?
Yeah.
So as a creator, it's almost like an obligation to that point of saying, okay, so I've built a fan base, and I'm entertaining these people, all right? But I just can't sit on my laurels and say, well, I'll spend a couple of years and just sell what I've got on the table.
Yeah.
Nah, doesn't work. They're going to turn around and go to somebody else right away.
And that's also why I see a lot of creators then look at doing value adds, where you start doing either alternate editions or included things like that, where like everyone understands that sometimes it takes time to get a new book out and like that, but there's nothing stopping you then from going back to issue 1 and then adding in and creating a notes edition where you have your annotated panels that added in there.
Totally.
Yeah.
Right.
And so when people say like, oh, what's new? Like, oh, well, I have this thing coming up, so make sure you're following me to get a hold of this. If you want to get some something a little bit more out of these books you read last year, I did this thing where I added notes, or someone did an encyclopedia where they did their story is more of an epic. So whenever it went to like, here's a new setting, or here's a new religion mentioned, or here's a new like pantheon, like, okay, then it cuts to another page that is just walls of text on either side where it's explaining the world building going on there. Yeah. Just find ways to add value. And never stop talking about it, essentially. You're going to sound like a narcissist, but admittedly, you wouldn't be creative if you didn't have a little bit of narcissism in you, because, everyone wants someone to read their stuff if you're in their space.
If you go to a good sized con that's got 200, 300, or 400, 500 attendees, literally by the end of 2 days, and most cons are that Saturdays and Sundays, by the end of a Sunday afternoon, right, I'll look at my wife, right, and we laugh and kid about it, and she said, oh, you ought to just record your spiel about this book or that book, because your voice starts to get hoarse. Right? You basically told this plot like 2,000 times, and it's just trying to keep that energy level up to the 2,000 times you're telling somebody, all right? So it's like, geez, I wish I had this on a tape recorder. I could just press the button and say, listen to this. It's what this book is about.
Right. Yeah. And speaking of which, ran one brain space there. Make the most out of your interactions with other creators too. Because we're all there to have fun. We're all there to sell books. And if you can trade books, that's fantastic. But just Yeah, make your own rounds around the table. Have someone watch your table and make your own rounds. Get to know the people around you. One, because they might be someone you want to collaborate with in the future.
Exactly.
Two, it's always nice to have friends in the space because then you have someone you can relate to. So when it's 2 a.m. and you're working on pages because you can't sleep, you have someone that when you put out a post on Blue Sky or Instagram, you have a comment saying like, "I'm doing the same thing." It's always fun, but these people also have their own audiences and their own fan base that may not necessarily intersect with yours, and like if you can, take from theirs and add it to your own, because they're not someone buying your book in addition is not going to stop them from buying their book. So you can help each other grow, because inversely, someone buying their book is not going to stop them from buying your book. So if you can figure out some way to collaborate either on social media or do joint panels, things like that, where now you're promoting each other and you're trying to build each other up. Even if you don't necessarily collaborate on a book itself, you can collaborate in the marketing and the selling process.
Yeah, I mean, look, at the heart of all this, all right, despite the fact that you become a professional, all right, and you work in the business, there's still that part of you that's a fan.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, I mean, looking at my own career and working my way through it, I have met so many other creators that initially it was just a case of I was their fan and bought their comics, all right, and got to know them personally over the years to the point where I'm still their fan.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, like I say, I mentioned, Mike Barron being at Rocky Mountain Con. Mike and I go back to, the first year we both showed up at San Diego at the same time, and we've been friends that long. Well, the point with me is anytime Mike puts something out new, I'll grab a digital copy of the cover and post it on social media and promote the heck out of it everywhere.
Yeah.
And I'll do the same thing for a lot of my other friends, artists and writers, and do my best to promote their work, because without saying it or even voicing it as anything, they do the same for me. All right, we're friends. We're in this business together, and that old adage about the same tide floats all boats. All right,
yeah.
Make yourself a good group of friends in this business. All right, of fellow creators. All right, who are going to be there not only to support you, but sometimes when things get a little rocky and a little rough, maybe you get a little depressed that you're not selling a lot or you're not getting this project out or whatever. They become your backbone. They become your support, your lifeline. So it's really vital. All right. I mean, none of us can do this by ourselves. And like, you already mentioned, Tim, even doing comics is at its heart a team effort.
Yeah.
And every creator who gets involved with it. All right. I mean, the larger you can build your network of friends, of good friends, all right, of good creative friends, the better off you're going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there is. Yeah, and even like you were talking there on the emotional level, that like your backbone when things are getting rough. There is a very unique experience and level of camaraderie that comes from the unofficial meetup that happens at the local Denny's or bar at 2 a.m. at the end of Con Day 2. Where you go in there like, oh, there's table 86 across the way. There's this person's around the corner from me at the con space. I lettered for them years ago, and you guys just will kind of congregate together and start talking about how it's been and start catching up. Like that is a level of fraternity that you cannot find anywhere else, and that is going to be what makes you excited to keep being at space and keep on going forward.
Yep, totally.
Yeah, cool. Okay, well, we have actually talked to quite a bit of time here. We are right at the clock.
I've just been listening.
Yeah, as I was open the floor here, since Ron and I have kind of been taking up a lot of space here, David, as a colorist, you might not necessarily be the one who's building the team, but you're definitely just as involved in the creation of the product. And you need to be approached, and I'm sure there are certain ways to approach you that will make you excited to work, and certain ways to approach you that will get the writer added to a block list. But as well as how you go about with comics or pages that you've done at a con space. What are some of the thoughts, or how do things look like for you?
Well, for me, I like to know kind of up front what kind of stuff that people are looking for. an idea, what kind of freedom, do you want something that's really loose and, go to town, or you want something that's really structured? And I like to deal with people that have an idea of what they want, regardless of how loose they are on what they expect from you. But one of the things that's really hard for me is getting into work with somebody where you ultimately know that you're going to be 15 revisions down and they're still changing their mind and they don't know what they want and all this stuff. So things that sell it too are people that are like you guys have been saying, people that are pretty passionate about what they want. They have a good idea for what they want. If they're open for suggestions and stuff, that's also a plus. It's it's more that way for me, doing the coloring stuff and even with the inking stuff that I was doing initially. It's there also is a lot of what projects are available for you at the time. If you're not doing something, and when I started out, it was I was doing your retail thing, and you're kind of hungry to do all the stuff. You really want to get into comics, and you want and so you're more open to projects that are anything that comes your way. You're a lot more open. Nowadays, a little harder. Having full nine to five job or 8 to 5 job and all that stuff. It's I don't want to say you're not quite as hungry, but there's some things where now you're balancing the time that you have. Maybe you can do something that's a little more effective or something that helps with your end goal. Some good samples. Whereas when you're younger and you're raw and you're hungry, it's like anything I can do to get out there. Let's get some stuff out there. And then another thing I was thinking, not so much in this aspect, but was with we're talking about social media and things. I wanted to comment on with um, how strong like Facebook Reels and things like that, where a lot of people are continually sucked into the next Twitch, all that stuff. But any of the visual stimulation that comes in, getting that stuff out there and showing some things, and just throwing them out there, just the subconscious, if you can catch somebody as they're they're looking through and go, hey, I'm interested in this. Ooh, this looks pretty cool. I think that's a big thing too. So I'm very strong on the thing on that. I'm just very, very bad at the implementation of it. And one thing that I did want to bring up also is there's the aspect of trying to get your stuff, but there's a degree of difficulty in getting it with whatever current workload you have.
Mm-hmm.
There's to sit there and put your stuff out on social media. That's a time-consuming thing.
Yeah.
Getting things, so you have to develop that. So if that's your goal, then you have to fit that into your schedule with your work to do that, and that's something I have a hard time with.
Yeah, I guess it's something where I can be a little. I can share some practicum from my own personal experience, because it is like especially like if it is con week, you're very likely you do not have time of the day to do your posting on social media, but that's probably the most important time to do that. So kind of we talked about earlier about the building the backlog of content or stuff to post. The practical way that could look like is there are a lot of good services out there TweetDeck used to be one of them when Twitter was relevant. But there's similar things that handle Instagram and Threads and Blue Sky and TikTok, where essentially Threader is one of them. I think CopyDeck is one. Things like that. Inscription, where you create the post inside of this third-party service, and you schedule it to go out days in advance. And you can, so if you know that, like, I'm not going to have any time this week, but you have 30 minutes or whatever on Sunday while dinner's in the oven. You're like, okay, here's my post for Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and I'm just going to get those scheduled out now, and I don't need to look at my phone for the rest of the week.
Well, you think about it. I mean, content creating is a full-time job.
Yeah.
It literally can be. So
you can't let it get away from you. Okay. I mean, one of the things that you have to do is learn time management with that. Definitely. Mm-hmm. Right. It's like, okay, so I'm going to put aside X number of hours this week to do this. All right. Mm-hmm. And not let it, infringe on your creating. All right, what you're doing. All right, equally. All right, you balance both of those. Creating X number of hours, marketing X number of hours, social network X number of hours, and then the rest of your life. All right, like, hey, I gotta go get a tune up of the car. All right, or hey, my wife is like, I'd like your company a little bit sometimes this week. Those kinds of things. Yeah. So for even comic creators, people, time management is a key. The better you can do that, the more successful you're going to be.
Yeah. I had a social media series I did to push a project a while ago called Not a Lawyer, where I just gave the worst, most like offensive and tragic illegal advice I could because it related to this character. And it was and I filmed all that while I was waiting for a cartoon up. I just filmed like 14 30-second long videos, saved them all, and then I just scheduled them to go out for the however long I just wanted to the month or so. So it's like, all right, I've got my my oil's done, and I have now set up my marketing for the next month. It's all I'm edited, ready to go. I think that my favorite one was referencing the old names that said like Africa used to be spelled with 2 C's, just small stuff like that. It's like, think of small little jokes and pepper them in there. Who was John Cena? John Cena's Instagram thread, like obviously very prolific, well-known actor, celebrity, creative person. Over space, his Instagram feed is just him taking random photos offline and posting them without context. But in this description says like all these relate to what I'm currently doing. So he's just posting these little random memes or little random things. So it doesn't take a whole lot of time for him. And in an interview, he said his social media management should not take more than 5 minutes a day. He says like that's the time I've allotted myself, and I set myself up in such a way that I can do that effectively and in a way that works for me. And clearly it's working because he's still very relevant and still gets a lot of work in addition to just being talented. But just you'll find just a random thing of cars stuck in traffic in a social media feed without any context. You're like, okay, I know that John Cena is stuck in traffic, and this is him doing the social media for the day. Mm-hmm. So just find small little things that, again, like Ron said, that balance out with the rest of your schedule and that work for you. Yeah. And if you want to know if there is a way to automate something like, can I post to TikTok later? Like, Google things. The internet is always here. There are a ton of tutorials on how to make things work. If you have a thought, someone's probably also thought it and found a way to make it work.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Okay, well, this has actually been about all of our time. Ron, thank you for joining us, and sorry you had technical issues for the start there.
I apologize again, guys. I think next week I'll get on a half hour earlier and see. Most likely they'll pop up again, but maybe I can get them worked out by the time we hit the opening credit scene. So
perfect. Okay. Yeah. This has been the Silverline Show on Tuesday. Hopefully we have given you all some advice on how to make sure your comics get out. Let me pull up my calendar so I can see what we have going on next week. But while I do that, does anyone else have any closing thoughts or comments or questions that they wanted to let the audience know before we let them go? No?
I just want to add what I started with. Keep an eye out for Beyond the Stars #4 Kickstarter coming at the end of this month. Excuse me. It's a beautiful looking book. Andrea Bermuda's artwork is gorgeous. And you will see me most likely all over the internet promoting it.
Awesome.
Okay. Well, we'll be back next week with talking about what we're thankful for in comics. The week after that, we're not having a show because it'll be a few days removed from Thanksgiving. So we're doing our thankfulness episode next week. Okay. So make sure to check out Wednesday WM and Silver Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time on those respective days. We'll be back here next week, 8 p.m. Pacific Time on Tuesday. But until that time,
there you go.
Make
Make
mine
mine
Silverline.
Hey, I'm G-Rod. Make mine Silverline. You heard me.